Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I'm Fanny B, and today at Here We Are Here But Lost, I am going to talk a little bit about dreams. For me, dreams are something that are usually quite negative. I don't know if I've ever had a positive dream in my life. I don't want to say never because that absolutes are can, absolutes can be difficult to back up sometimes, but I almost never have a positive dream. They're almost always bad to all out nightmare. And the other thing is, I almost never remember my dreams. So that's the other reason I can't say absolute, because if I'm not remembering something, how do I know what it's about? But I had a dream last night and I remembered it for a change. And that was really interesting. So, I think most of my life I didn't really think too much about dreams, or I would just sort of like shrug them off. I've had a few recurring dreams that I guess I've thought about, and I've had a couple of times where maybe I woke up like crying or like gasping for breath or something where I really was impacted by a dream. So in those cases, those have stuck with me a little bit more. But aside from that, thinking about dreams, talking about dreams, interrogating my dreams hasn't ever really been anything that I've done with much frequency. But thanks to a wonderful teacher, Julia Frodahl, that I've been working with for going on a year, I guess. Thanks to her and a class that I took with her several months ago, dream tending, I've really thought a lot more about dreams as a doorway, a portal to our inner world and beyond, depending on how deep you get and how effectively you're able to work with your dreams. And so the dream that I had last night didn't really mean that much to me at the time. It was one of those weird situations where I was in my house, but it wasn't actually my house. It was like almost like a stucco or like an adobe style home, which is not the style of home I live in, where there's a lot of wood and plaster and stuff here. It felt, much more of like a stucco kind of house. And the ceilings were really, really tall and everything was very white. But somehow the kitchen island was the same kitchen island that I have. So I love how our brains work like that. And there was this line of ants that was crawling up one wall all the way across the ceiling and then exiting out kind of some corner or window area. And now that I think about it, that would be an odd place for a window, but I don't know, maybe like a skylight or something kind of window. I don't know. It was a dream. And I must have either woken up shortly after, or maybe just when I first woke up this morning, it was on my mind. And so, first of all, the fact that I even remembered it was interesting. But the feeling that went along with it, I posted a video yesterday about that sort of like itch you feel when you're just trying to exist, when you're just trying to be, and how we can feel so compelled toward movement or activity or literally just doing anything besides sitting still and just being with ourselves. And it was a similar feeling in this dream. It was like, oh my gosh, there are these ants. They're not supposed to be there. I don't want them there. I need to get them out of there. But they're way up high and I can't reach them. And I don't want to pollute my environment by, spraying them. And I don't really know how to deal with them. So it's almost that same itch feeling, or that sort of noticeable discomfort of something that's bothering you, but is somewhat out of reach. And when I was thinking about, well, what do I want to talk about today? I was like, let's look up meaning of dreams. And I know from Julia that you shouldn't just look up what your dreams mean. And that a lot of dream guides, dream books, things like that, they're interesting food for thought. But where the dream derives meaning is actually from the person who has it. And so, as I've already described, that sort of like itch or out of reach or overwhelm or inability to deal with the feelings that I was having related to that dream. So I did what any modern person would do, and I Googled it. And what I found was much more aligned than I thought maybe. One piece of it was that ants can represent industriousness and hard work, which resonates to a degree, I guess. But there was another one that was really about petty annoyances, little, daily petty annoyances that pile up and give us this feeling of too much. And that right there hit the nail on the head for me. It was that my life is going really well in so many ways, but there's all of these tiny little pieces that are just annoying, that are just not quite right, that are just off enough to drive me to dream about ants. And so that one really resonated. And then the final one that I saw that I decided that I want to adopt, even though it hadn't occurred to me, is that it depends on the type of ant you're dreaming about. And in my case, I was dreaming about those like larger black ants, like carpenter ants, I think is probably the most accurate label for them. And this kind of ant is actually a good omen. It's a representation of upcoming prosperity and wealth. And so even though that wasn't the feeling of my dream, I'm going to say that is actually the meaning of the dream, because I could use a little bit of prosperity and wealth in my future. Couldn't you? So anyway, dreams are an interesting window into our inner world. I almost never remember them, but when I do, I can't help but take it as some sort of message from my subconscious self that I need to pay attention to something in my life or in my world. And so this was my nudge to start to deal with these little things that have been bothering me one by one, step by step, to decrease that feeling of overwhelm, and that feeling of itch that I can't scratch. So what does that mean for me? Well, I have a bunch of pretty large scale cleaning and decluttering projects that I need to tackle. So that is where I'm headed next. What kinds of dreams have you been having recently? Do you have any inkling into their meaning? Do you also look up the meanings of your dreams? And if anybody is interested in learning more about Julia Frodahl, I'll put a link to her website in a comment and in the description. But her classes have been wonderful, really beautiful community, really insightful, and has pushed me to think outside of some of the conventions that I had adopted about our world and how we exist within it. So thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. And I look forward to chatting with you again soon. Have a great day.